So for our first day, what we're going to do is we're going to cover the syllabus, talk about the way the class is run, what you can expect from it. If you've had any of my classes in the past, you're kind of familiar with the way that it runs, but a lot of y'all haven't. So we'll go ahead and cover that, and then we will hop open our development tools, and we'll get a short little program up and running. We'll upload it to D2L as our finished assignment, and that way, we can all feel good that we know what we're going to be doing for the rest of the semester. So let's take a look at what we have here. Alrighty, so this is script programming. What is script programming? Well, the difference between a scripting language and a programming language is they're the same thing, except that, excuse me. Sorry about that. I have these tracker devices on my wallet. When I sit down on it wrong, it rings my phone to let me know where the wallet is. Okay, so a scripting language is a computer programming language that can be run inside a shell, an interactive shell, where you type in commands and it responds immediately. If you need to do a C++ program, you have to open a text editor of some kind, and then you type in the entire program, and then you tell it to compile and how to make it executable, and then you run it. A script programming language lets you pop open a window, and then you can type things in and have it do responses immediately. Now, we're not going to use the language in that mode very often, but here's what it would look like. The name of the editor is IDLE, Idle. The inventor of the Python programming language loves Monty Python's Flying Circus, and Eric Idle is a member of Monty Python, so he named it after him. So anyways, I'm going to pull it up, and when I run idle, it's going to launch itself into what's known as the shell. And at the shell, I can enter programming commands. I could do this, like A is equal to 3, B is equal to A times 6. Print B. And N is equal to input quote, what is your name? You see how it's doing everything as I type it? We are issuing commands and it's responding, but we're not really writing a program, are we? Right? We're just telling it what to do. Writing a program would be creating a new file and then typing these commands into the new file and then running it all as one fell swoop. The difference between you sitting there following somebody as they're going to Walmart saying, turn left, turn right, turn left, or giving them a handed printout, right? A set of instructions to follow. And that will be what we do most of the time. We will do very little in the shell just because we want to write programs, right? We want to write stuff and then be able to run them rather than just typing in little commands one at a time. So, information. That's my name, Jeff Thompson. You can call me Professor Thompson. You can call me Jeff, whatever. I don't much care. My office is downstairs. I have office hours 4 days a week. So there's a link to it posted in the document section in the docs. While we're looking at it, if y'all would be so kind, just grab your phone and go ahead and send me a text message at that number. And the reasons for that are twofold. One is that it has my number. Now you'll have my number right at your fingertips, so if you get stuck, it's easy for you to get a hold of me. And also I can get a hold of you if I know that the campus is going to be closed, right? Or if I get horribly sick or something like that. If I did get sick, I would post a notice on D2L. I would send out email, but I would also send out a mass text to every phone number that I have. So if you would be so kind as to send me your name, not my name, right? Jodo, and your class, CIT1113. And you don't have to do it, but it's pretty convenient. The big advantage for you is if you're up late doing your programming and you get stuck, you can just get to a point on the screen where it's showing your error. You can take a picture of your source code, text it to me. I'm up until 2 a.m. every night anyways. I'll respond. Yes, I'll see it. I'll figure, I'll go, oh, you just forgot to put the semicolon there. Or, that kind of thing. And quite often it gets more involved than that, but sometimes it really is that easy, right? I can just tell you to go to that particular line and do that, especially in the beginning stages. So, good to have that available to you. Never feel shy about texting me or calling me. Texting is better, in my opinion, than calling because I will always respond to text reasonably quickly, but if I'm doing something else, I may not take the call right then and there. Never feel like you have to worry about whether it's late at night or not. I do know how to silence my phone, so just always feel free to do it. The people who take advantage of that communication tend to do pretty well in the class. Fortunately, we know where we are. 5:40 p.m. Business 218. Technical requirements, a Windows, a Mac or Linux. Now, if you really want to do it with something offbeat, like a Chromebook, you could probably do that, but I've only had a couple of people try to do that in the past 4 or 5 years, and so what you're going to want to do is have a computer available to you at home, a laptop, a desktop, whatever the operating system is, doesn't matter, and you're going to install the Python development environment on it so that you can write your programs at home. Well, I don't have a computer that I can do this at home. Well, there are computers here that you can do the same thing on. There's a little business computer lab down in the hallway, go down the hallway and take a right, and it's right there. So obviously it's much more convenient for you if you can do it at home, and just about everybody has a computer, I think. Although people are wandering away from computers now that their tablets and their phones are so awesome. So we've changed textbooks. This is the first semester that I've taught from this particular textbook, so that'd be an interesting little journey to go through. It is a C-Engage MindTap textbook, which means that once you buy it, you read it online. You can also buy the physical textbook if you want, but if you buy the physical textbook, it doesn't give you the access to the C-Engage Online, which is what you're going to need to take the end of chapter tests that it has. So we'll get into more of that in a little bit. If you've never used a MindTap course before, it's kind of weird looking, but it's not too hard to get used to. If you are taking other classes this semester that uses MindTap, C-Engage, then you'll want to sign up for something called C-Engage Unlimited, which for one price lets you use, in any number of books that you're using in all your classes. So like if this is your only class, just buy this book. But if you have 2 or more classes that are all using the C-Engage website, get C-Engage Unlimited, and it'll let you, for one price, you'll have access to multiple books. There is also an online website that I use, which is called Python for Everyone, and then looks just like a traditional website, right? It's got it's got information about the various things we'll be doing. So we will augment the textbook with this. So what are we going to be doing? Learning scripting with the Python language. What is scripting? It's just the act of telling the computer what to do, right? I want to write a program that'll scan all the ports on this specific IP address. I want to write a program that will, read this file and calculate all the possible permutations of this code, whatever. And so in order to do that, we're going to learn how to use arrays, lists, dictionaries, parameter passing, class creation. Learn to use file functions for input-output. It's very possible that you've had programming 101 in which case you've done some of this stuff already. Who has taken fundamentals of programming logic? Vast majority. Who has not? Okay, so what we're doing is I'm not going to assume that you have Python programming experience, but you do need to be aware of the fact that 75% of the class does have it. And so what I may do is give y'all a tutorial website that you might want to hit in order to, to gain some speed very early on. We will be creating graphical user interface programs. A graphical user interface is just one of those, things with like push buttons and text boxes and, scrolly text fields and stuff like that. Because until then, what we're going to be doing is all, command line programs. You know what a command line is. It looks something like that. You type in a command, it does something. You type in a command, it does something. It's all text-based. And so that's what we'll be doing through, the first half of the semester. But we want to do cooler stuff as we go along. And then hopefully we'll be able to switch gears and do some HTML and JavaScript. JavaScript is a separate scripting language. It's completely different than Python, and that's okay. You don't have to learn a lot about JavaScript in order to do this. I just want you to have an introduction to the idea, the concepts. What JavaScript does is it provides the interactivity for web pages. When you're looking at a web page like this and things are lighting up when you move your cursor over them, and things like that, or you have, a shopping cart that you're adding items to, like on Amazon, all of that is done with JavaScript. And so even if you're not going to be, a creator of web pages, it's good to have just, somewhat of an introduction to it. And we really do need to have a full semester-long course in JavaScript, which we've had in the past. And I know that Donna Wilson is putting that back into her class over HTML and Dreamweaver, but we need to bring it back out. But until then, I am going to go ahead and make sure that we see it in this class. Spend the last couple of weeks on that. And that's kind of fun. You get to make web pages, and the web pages are interactive to your clicks, stuff like that. So we're not using Canvas on this one, so you're just going to go to d2l.rose.edu. When you have in prior semesters, this will be the last semester in which D2L is accessible to our campus, so it's on its way out. You have a webmail address. Hopefully you know it already. I'm assuming that all of y'all, the vast majority of y'all have already had, a previous semester here. But anyways, your webmail address is your first name dash last name at rader.rose.edu, or some permutation of that. You've already got documentation, I'm sure, about how to get to it. It's just a Gmail account. The grading scale is pretty traditional. 60% above a D, 70% is above a C, a B is an 80, and 90 is an A. People ask me, do you curve your grades? No, not really, but if you're sitting like at an 89.5, I'm not going to be a jerk and give you a B, right? 89.5. Round that up to an A. Why not? So the grades are broken down as this. We have three things that are worth equal amounts of weights. Programming homework is about a third. In-class is about a third. And quizzes and exams, about a third. And then tacked onto that, 10% of your final grade is a final project. The final project is a chance for you to work on something that you want to do rather than me giving you explicit instructions over what to do. And as we get closer to, the halfway point this semester, we'll talk more about the final project. I have a list of final projects you can undertake, or you can come up with one of your own, right? Which is even cooler, some idea that you want to do. So you can see that, each one of these is about a third of the grade if you pretend that the final project doesn't exist. Each one's 30% of your grade. So what are in-class assignments? In-class is when I'm sitting up here and I'm giving you demonstrations, tutorials. I'll pop open idle and I'll type in some commands and I'll write a program with you. And that's not all I'm going to do during the class, but we will do that. And then you can type along with me if you so choose, and you can get the program running yourself. And I recommend that if your learning style, cooperates with that you go ahead and do that, because that way, you're programming it, you're burning it into your brain, by writing it, seeing it, because if you just stare at the screen, you're going to fall asleep. And I'm pretty sure of that. I'm not exciting enough to keep y'all awake if you're not participating in typing. So I hope that y'all will do that. On the other hand, if you think that learning style is for the birds, then all you need to do is upload a document at the end of the lecture saying that you are here. But I do want you to upload something every time we meet. That just kind of proves that you are here, preferably the program that we go over. So we will be doing that once a day, once per class. And then along with those, we will have programming assignments, homework, which is kind of based on the concepts that we covered in that class period, or based on concepts from the book. Hopefully we will doubly cover those. I'm not going to give you something and say, read this chapter in the book and then do this homework, and it's going to be something over that we've never talked about. That's uncool. And then we'll have quizzes and exams. The quizzes, a good chunk of them will be the end of chapter quizzes that you will take online via the MindTap application online, CEngage. And then I will probably have additional quizzes, which we will take under D2L. And the way the quizzes work is you can take them as many times as you want in order to raise your grade on them, right? You make an 80%, you don't like that 80%, you take it again, you make an 85, you take it again, you make 100, bumps your score up. There's no reason to accept a bad grade on a quiz. The side effect of that is that you probably will not see something that says this quiz is due this week and this quiz is due next week, flashing up in the corner like that. Maybe you will, but what happens is, we'll just go on. We'll figure that out as we get there. What I generally have to do is I have to assign a due date so that it shows up, on your to-do list, and then it exceeds the due date, and I go back and reset it so that you can take it again, that kind of thing. So submitting the homework. What I want y'all to do is after you get your program up and running, and this is for your homework, but we will do it today in class as well. Normally I don't want you to go to all this trouble for the in-class stuff. I want you to take a screenshot of it successfully running. and you will upload the screenshot. And then give me both the screenshot and the source code, the script file that you created, the Python file you created. If you like using zip and you want to zip the files together, that's great. You don't have to. We'll cover how to take the screenshot. I'm sure most of y'all know how to do it, but it's not too difficult to do. If you're doing it on a Mac than on a PC, the sequence of steps is just a little bit different, but you'll be able to figure out how to do it. And I'm going to modify my screenshot documentation to show you how to do it on a Mac as well. And I have no idea how you do it on Linux. So if you do, and you feel like telling me, that'd be pretty cool. When you submit the assignment, there is a comments field. Whenever you upload something to D2L, you choose the file that you want to upload, but then there's a place you can type in something. Make use of that. I couldn't get this to work with the whatever, right? It would not create the file, that kind of thing. That way, it's not a total surprise when I run it and it's not working. Because if I run it and it's not working, I may think, okay, I did something wrong. And then I have to look at, carefully and figure out if you give me feedback saying that it's not working, then it's not a surprise for me to go in and look at it. So we'll talk about, okay, just a second, grading policy. Your programs do have to run in order to get any credit. What does that mean? My program has to be perfect before I get any grade? No, but it has to run. What does that mean? It means it can't have any syntax errors. Syntax errors, syntax is like, in our language, you put, adverbs and adjectives before the noun, right? We say the red tractor. And in other languages, you put the adjectives after the noun, the tractor red, whatever those words are in Spanish, right? And so the syntax of those two languages is slightly different. And so, just like that, just like the rules of the languages we speak, programming languages have syntaxes, and if you violate those syntaxes, the program won't run. So for example, I'm going to type in a little bit of code and it's not going to work. All right. So I've entered a little bit of a program. I'm ready for it to work. I run it. It's going to ask me where to save it. Do not save it into this Python 36-32 directory. This is where the Python executable files are stored. And it's really a drag that's what it defaults to. Save it to your documents folder or to a folder off your desktop or something. And I'm going to go ahead and make a folder off the desktop so that I can be saving all my stuff there. So anyways, it asked me to save it. I'm going to save my file. I'm just going to call it Jan22 because that's what today's date. And I run it, and it tells me invalid syntax. It did not give me a lot of useful information. At least it highlighted the word where it thinks the problem is. But the problem really is not on that word. What is the real problem?
No any parentheses?
Right. You have to have a closing parentheses for every open parentheses. And it doesn't realize there's a problem until it hits this word print here, and it decides that's a syntax error. It'd be nice if it figured out that the problem was there, right? Put the cursor there, highlight that, but it doesn't necessarily do that. So that's an example of a syntax error, and if your code just fails to run, completely fails to run, I don't even get to see anything, then you can't get a grade for it. You can submit it and ask me to look at it and ask for help. But if you're that stuck, you probably ought to be texting me messages, right? To take a picture of this, and I would say, oh, you forgot the closing parentheses, and then you get on your way. Now, as the due date of the program comes, it's better to go ahead and upload something. Just say that it's not finished, right? If it's not finished, go ahead and upload something if you're going to keep working on it. But do put a note in the comment field saying that it's not a complete thing, and we'll talk about due dates in a moment. So that's an example of a syntax error. Other syntax errors are things like, what if we created our variable and we called it A1, but when we tried to print it out, we gave it a different name. Still a syntax error. It ran a little bit, but it got to that line of code that said name A2 is not defined. And so, the program is not a valid program. You need to have it to the point where it will at least run, even if it's not giving you the right output, right? What if you were going to calculate the interest over a certain number of balance over a certain number of years, right? And it always calculated that the interest was 0. That's not great, right? But it's a lot better to upload that and put a note on here saying, I don't know why it's not calculating interest, than to turn in something that doesn't even run because it crashes, with red text as soon as you try to run it. So I do want you to submit a screenshot. I know that it's annoying, but I do want you to submit a screenshot for every program you upload. If you cannot get your program to meet the requirements of the assignment, meaning that the syntax errors are fixed, but it doesn't quite do what you want it to do, go ahead and submit it and then put in the comments field what was wrong. And I'll give you partial credit, right? It does all the input that it's supposed to do. It asks the user for their, their balance and their whatever, but it calculates the interest wrong. And I would give you partial credit for that. And when I grade it, you'll see that you didn't earn 100, and you can click on your feedback and you'll see what went wrong with it. And I'll almost always add a comment that says, please correct and resubmit for more credit, right? Pretty much you'll always have a chance to revise it and resubmit it for more credit, So if you don't see 100% there and you wish that the grade was higher, if you didn't make an A on it and you want an A, read the feedback, figure out what I said was wrong with it, and then to tackle the problem again and upload it again. Even if it's past the due date, it's cool. So partial credit may be awarded for assignments that do not meet the full criteria, right? I ask you to write something that'll open up the file and change all the data and write it back out. And your program opens up the file, but it doesn't write it back out, right? So it's partly done. You'd get partial credit for that. Then I would note that, and I'd tell you to finish it, and you'd get the chance to finish it. In general, program assignments are due the next week. If I talk about a program assignment today, then it will be due next Tuesday, right, or Monday night, 11:59. You need to complete at least half of your programming assignments to pass the course, and the programming assignments are the ones that you're doing on your own. So just keep that in mind, that if you're starting to blow off the homework assignments for some reason, don't do that. You need to keep up with them. Not giving out incomplete grades. What's an incomplete? Well, you make it partway through the semester and then you're unable to attend or whatever. What we're supposed to do is award you the grade that you would have at that moment that you quit. Like you finished 60% of the coursework, so you'd earned a D up to that point. I'm supposed to give you a D and then work with you to offer you the opportunity to finish the work after the end of the semester, and then I'll raise it, right? And I've done that before. Somebody can't get the work done because something's happened, during the semester. And then so we say, okay, you have, 4 weeks after the end of the semester to get all your work in. Yeah, I'll do that. But let me know about it in advance. Don't just, wait until the last day of the semester and then say, oh man, I didn't do a lot of my homework. Can I have extra time? Now, you should have noticed that you weren't doing your homework before then. Talk to me about this kind of stuff and I'm really easy to work with. If you don't talk with me about it, then I can't work with you so much. So the late assignment, if it's up to a week late, it gets 10% off. If it's 2 weeks, it's 20% off. If it's 3, 30%, and then after that it's 40%, but nothing is accepted more than 4 weeks late. So effectively, if you turn something in after a month, then you're not going to get any credit for it. Now that looks kind of generous, like, ooh, I could turn something 3 weeks late and still make a C. Well, yeah, technically you could. On the other hand, if you're not doing the programs, then you're not going to understand the lecture. And by not understanding the lecture, you're not going to be able to do the next homework assignment. You really don't want to fall behind, And I'll give y'all like a day grace period. If I want something due, midnight the night before, Monday night, and you don't get it done, then come in and ask me questions, and then go home and finish it, that's okay. I'd still probably give you 100% on that. At some point I need to become more aggressive about, that, because people always have a certain number of people who start getting behind and then they wind up being in trouble. And if I just said no late work or, nothing accepted after a week, but, I always liked it when a professor would work with me if I had, reason. So that's the way I want to be. In-class assignments, just get them done within a month, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, if you have to miss a lecture, you watch the video. Every lecture is videotaped, meaning that you see the screen and you hear my voice. Just watch the video and either type along with it and submit what you typed along, or go and fill in a little form I have just stating that you watched the video and telling me something that you learned from it. But you want to do that reasonably quickly. You don't want to wait, Really, if you miss a lecture, you ought to have that lecture watched by the next week, right? And so I should tighten that down from being 4 weeks to 1 week or something like that. But I'm going to leave it. I'm not going to modify the syllabus. But as long as you get it done, you're going to get full credit on it. I might waive a late fee, a late deduction, if you talk to me about why it's late, right? You know, I got to go up to Michigan and take care of my, my aunt's estate or whatever. Let me know why you're not there, why you're not able to get the homework done, and tell me when you're going to get it done, and I'll work with you on it. Now, if that's the case, then when you upload it, please remind me in the comments field, this is late. Like I said, I had to go to Michigan, right? And that'll trigger it in my brain because it's possible that I will tell you, yeah, it's okay, go ahead and submit it, and I won't remember your name and cross-reference with, whatever. So it's always a good idea to use that comments field to your advantage. And if something is late, it's a real good reason to go ahead and put a comment there. And if it's something you've talked about with me and I said, yeah, no problem, remind me of that. So attendance. Attendance is not mandatory, but it's really important. What do I mean by that? Is that people who miss a lot of class quite often do poorly. Typically what happens is that somebody misses a class and then they go and they watch the video. Okay, that's all great. And then that kind of sets it up. It's kind of seductive. I don't want to go to class. I can just watch the video. So you skip another class and you watch the video. Hey, this is cool. I'm digging this. And so you skip the next one and you go, I'm going to postpone doing that video. I'm not going to do it now. And then you get out of the habit of either going to the class or doing the videos, and then it nosedives, crashes. Nothing good comes from that. So be pretty aggressive about attending class, and if you don't attend the class, be aggressive about watching the lecture quickly by the next class period, preferably. So like I said, there's no deduction for it, but the students in general who attend classes and do not miss many do better in the courses. So the AW policy, I'm sure that you've heard this from every instructor you're taking a class from, but if you do not show up for the first week of class, for an 8-week class, or the first 2 weeks of a 16-week class, you get dropped from the class. You get an AW marked on your transcript, and then whoever I have been giving you money to go to school is going to come back and get it out of your pocket. So if you can't attend class, just drop it. That's what you need to do. Is at the beginning of the semester, if it turns out that you can't go to class, don't just let those things stay on your transcript. Just drop the class. That's the way you ought to do it. Now everybody's in here, so that's not going to be a problem for y'all. Used to be that people could make a living by getting a grant to go to school, not going to the school, but getting money for it, and then going somewhere else, and then doing that again at a different state or whatever. But they've modified the rules so that if you don't show up, you're still legally liable for the money, and whatever agency gave you that grant is going to come back and get it from you if you have an AW.
They ruined it for us.
All right, that's not supposed to say C++. Yeah. It's supposed to be. So your responsibilities. You better have access to the internet and Python development tools, even if the said access is just going down the hallway and using the business computer room. Keep up with D2L updates. If there's something really important that I want you to know by the next class period, I will post about it on D2L, of course, and I will email it out. And if it's really, really, really important, I'll also text you about it. But just keep up with the updates. Attend class, watch the videos for the missing lectures, read the text. If you don't understand the programming problem that I gave you, I will ask you, have you read the text over? And I know that reading online texts, I don't like, but that's the way that you get the book, unless you buy, a used physical text copy of it as well. Useful. Do read it, because you're pretty much going to be forced to read it if you're doing the end of chapter tests online anyways. So I don't need to belabor that. Keep up with the schedule and the due date, because if things start slipping, then it's kind of a cascade effect. Things get worse. So, completing assignments on that's the flip side of that. Communicate with the professor about problems with the class. If you're getting stuck, let me know. I'll work with you. I have office hours during the day. If those times aren't good times to meet, then we can set up an appointment and meet on Friday or something like that. I'm not normally here on Friday, but the building's open. I could do so. So ask for help when needed. Text me, send me pictures of your broken code, call me, send me email, whatever we need to do in order to get it to work. If you have a laptop, totally cool to bring it to class. right? That way you can configure, your laptop, and you can take it here, you can start doing work, and you can just take it back home and keep doing work. If you're stuck on a programming problem, you bring your laptop in, you show me, hey, that's not, and it makes it really easy. Don't be annoying with your phones. And you know what I mean by that. Don't sit there playing Candy Crush or, don't put anything on your screen that would distract the people behind you. No watching Twitch streams or YouTube videos or anything like that. And the only reason I say that is I've had people do that. I know that the Twitch stream is way more interesting than me, and so if you have something up interesting on your screen, nobody's going to be looking at me, and it hurts my feelings. So don't do that. Do check D2L occasionally. If I decide to modify the syllabus, I will lecture about that in class. Like for some reason I decide that the project is worth 90% of your grade rather than 10. I'm not going to do that. I would let you know. I would lecture about it in here. I would send an email notification out about it. But once I've mentioned it here, posted it in D2L and sent email about it, then then it would be a done deal. So homework will be graded within a week of submission. If there's problems with it, you won't get a perfect grade, but you can revise it, resubmit it. I've said that several times just because I should really, really hope people do that. And expectations of me. I'm supposed to give clear instructions for the assignments. If you look at the assignment and you can't make sense out of what I'm asking for, it's probably because I was dumb and I didn't write it right. Or I was copying and pasting and I missed an important paragraph. Or the preview option in D2L does not always show you everything that's in the document, which is infuriating. So when you're looking at something on D2L, it's a good idea to go ahead and do a download and open, even though you should not have to do that. But anyways, if the instructions are not clear, how are you going to be able to get the homework done? So text me, let me know that there's a problem with it. I'll look at it and I'll go, yeah, you're right. That's pretty dumb. And I'll post an update for everybody, if warranted. I will answer questions regarding assignments, whether you pose them in person, phone, text, email. I will grade your work and give you feedback. I'll give at least a week's notice of due assignments and 2 weeks' notice of exams. And everything will be posted on D2L, including links to the quizzes that you will have to take within MindTap. And all due dates will be shown clearly in D2L. So academic integrity. In other words, how come I can't make that uppercase T? Eric, alrighty. There. We're done now, right? Okay. But what does that really mean? Like in the past, I've allowed the project for people to do. One of the choices was to write a hangman program. And I've subsequently noticed that a lot of people would choose the hangman project, get stuck, they would Google up and they would find a hangman. 8 million people have written hangman games in Python. And so they would find one and they would copy and paste it into theirs and they'd give it to me. And it would be blatantly obvious that you didn't write it. And when I talk about my consequences, what happens when you do academic dishonesty, it's just really not a good thing. So, not sure what to do about the hangman. I like offering it, but it apparently is way too tempting for people to go and try to find versions of it that are already online. Do not go out on the internet and find something and upload it as though it were your own work.
Can you, if you look at someone else's code though, and they have something in it, like a timer that you hadn't thought of before?
Right. That's the way that you should use it. All programmers Google for help, right? You can't figure out how to open a file. You Google and you see how to open a file. You can't figure out how to create a timer to check it. So you can build that up, and you can put copies, snippets of it. But you don't copy the whole thing and upload it, or a vast majority of it. You have to make it your own, just like you were writing a term paper, right? If you're writing a term paper and you take, 8 paragraphs out of another book and do not give credit due, then it's plagiarism. After you're done writing a program, you ought to be able to sit down with pencil and paper if I asked you and recreate a lot of it, right? And if you had just copied and pasted from the internet without making it your own, without understanding it, then if I asked you to do that, which I could, if I didn't think that you had done it yourself. So that's one way. The other way is if people are collaborating with each other. Now, I encourage y'all to work with each other on the in-class assignments, although y'all have lined it up so that there's only one person per row, so that's not going to happen too much. But totally okay if you two want to, look at each other's screens and say, you missed putting that parentheses over there. That saves me some time wandering around. It's cool. But When you're doing the homework, don't ask somebody to look at their code. If somebody asks you to look at your code, don't give it to them. And I'm sorry to say that, but what happens is if you ask, if somebody asks you, I get a Snapchat message, man, I just can't figure this out. Can you send me your code so I can find the problem in my code? And it's likely that they haven't even started, right? And so I give them my code and they submit it as though it was theirs. And then the professor gives me a 0. Well, that's not fair. No, it's not fair, but that's the way that it works. That's if you take somebody else's work and you submit it, then both people get in trouble for it. So
it's fine if like they couldn't find the error in their program and you just look at it for them.
well, yeah, I mean, people do work together, right? And if you're working on your homework and you point to it and Nancy doesn't that, all you have to do is have it say work. That's okay. I'm not gonna come over here to the club, and get mad at y'all. But do not give somebody else your code. Don't write somebody else's program for them. That makes sense? If two programs look too similar, then it becomes kind of a drag. If the two programs look identical, most often, or quite often when it's happened, it's because you have multiple people living in the same apartment who are both taking a class, right? There's one computer there. They just both sit down, they write the program. They don't feel like writing it twice. And I understand not wanting to write it twice, but you gotta turn in your own work. So the consequences. If the professor determines that you did not do your own work, or you let someone else copy your work, or that you collaborated on the assignment, the least that will happen is you'll get an F on that assignment, or a quiz or exam. And obviously, if it was an exam, it would really tank your score. So, and that would apply to all collaborators. So if you get somebody else's program and copy it, they're gonna get a bad grade on it too, and they will hate you. So I do encourage y'all to help each other on the in-class tutorials. And, like I was just telling Vincent, I'm not going to scream if I see two people looking at somebody's homework trying to figure out what's wrong with it. But do not take somebody else's work and submit it as your own. And in addition to getting that 0 on the grade, a report will be sent to the division dean and the director of student conduct, and you may be dropped from the class. You could be expelled, from campus. Used to be that what students would do is they'd get caught and they'd say, oh man, I was just, I ran out of time. I'm sorry I did this. I'll never do it again. And then it would turn out that if instructors compared notes, that people would have a history of doing that in class after class after class. So nowadays they all have to go to the director of student conduct. All right, now that I've lectured about it that much, it's not going to be a problem. Free personal counseling. So if there's stuff going on in your life, stuff with a capital STUFF, right? Trauma, grief, substance abuse, anything that's preventing you from realizing your intellectual and personal potential, you can go and talk to the counselors here. It's free, it's cool. Free stuff is always cool, huh? They are good people. If you have needs of a sort that go above and beyond what are normally provided, like you need to sit in the front row, or you're dyslexic and you're going to need additional time to take an exam, or you want permission to bring in a recorder or a video camera. I don't care if you videotape me, it's totally cool. You don't even have to go and do this. But you go to the Office of Disability, what used to be called the Office of Disability Services. It's now called Student Access Services. They fill out some paperwork, you bring that to me, and then whatever you need, I will work with you. All right. Mental health and free personal counseling seems like a copy and paste of the same paragraph. The Student Success Center. The Student Success Center designed to help students' personal growth, professional development, academic progress. Anyways, they give workshops such as finding scholarships, right? Unlocking your potential to learn, math anxiety, resumes, job searches, stuff like that. And since it's free, I've never actually gone to talk to them, but it might be some really good stuff, so it's worth looking at. All right, I give the URL for the bookstore, but if you're like me, what you probably do is you just go to Google and you type Rose Space Bookstore, and it takes you there. Login assistance. Well, if you can log in well enough to get to D2L, you probably don't need this document. But it's worth writing this number down. You might want to put that number in your phone. That's the IT help desk. something's not working, you can't log in, your account's locked for some reason, you can call them up and they can offer help. If you're having D2L trouble, then you go to the D2L help desk page. And the instructors have to do it this way too. It's not like we have some special way of getting a hold of them. We do it the same exact way y'all do. We log into the forum, we fill in the information, and then they will call you back, tell you what you got to do to fix your problem, or else they'll send us, the instructor, a strongly worded message about how to fix the problem. All right, so our final, is going to be on May 14th. Last day to drop will be Feb 4. Last day for a full refund. And then in April, if you're not going to get a refund, obviously, at that point, we will have a spring break. Woohoo! The final exams is that week. And if you want to figure out when your exams are for other classes as well as ours, and on the last page I posted the little sheet from the spring catalog, so you can do that. Alrighty, so what are we going to do? In general, we're going to have an in-class lecture where I'm sitting up here and I'm writing code, and you can type along and enter it and get it to run and explore if you want to, or you can just watch it. If you just watch and don't type along, then you're going to want to upload something at the end of the class period anyways, and I'll just know that you're here. And then there will be homework assignments, and then we will have yes sir.
I was just wondering, since it's with MindTap, are exams still going to be open book like other classes? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Good point. Exams. How much do I need to worry about my exams? Do you give killer exams? My exams are open book. They're open PowerPoint. They're open notes that you've taken. I'll create a folder where you can upload it, all your programs that you've written and you want to put in there. So MindTap counts as a book, so you can log into to MindTap, and open the chapter and start reading it right in the middle of the class. It's totally fine with me. Because if you had a physical textbook, I would encourage you to do the same thing. Now, the reason I do that is because if you know enough to be able to find it in the book, that's great. But if you're completely clueless and you haven't ever seen the material before, then you're not going to be able to finish the exam by reading it from the book anyways, right? So you have to know enough of it to at least be able to find your way around the book in order to find the answers. So I don't feel bad about making these open book exams. Thank you for asking that. So if we go in to our page and we look under content, I'm not seeing the C-Engage module. It's already there. See? All right. What you buy from the bookstore will be a code that when you follow the link from within D2L will take you to the C-Engage MindTap screen. And you can either buy the book right there, you can whip out your credit card and enter it, and get in that way, or you can type in the code that you bought from the bookstore. And I wish that link was already there. Is it there now? All right, there's no MindTap homework yet. I'll start assigning it next week, but you're probably going to want to get into the book before next week. So, what I recommend y'all do is to go ahead and go into content, find the C-Engage Learning Resource link, click on the entry there. Can somebody just show me what this looks like for y'all? I never get to see it from the students' point of view. Yeah. So it takes you in, it shows your textbook. You could buy C-Engage Unlimited, or, you know, you could buy the textbook right on the spot. And I'm sure that there's a way that you can type in the code that you bought from the bookstore if that's how you bought it. Once you're in it, once you have access to it, and there is a free, couple of week, trial period, then what you will see is that you can read it online. I bet there's a C-Engage app that you could use if you have a tablet that would make this more fun to
There's
use.
one for your phone too.
That's cool. Yeah. So anyways, you can read your stuff there, and then down at the bottom there will be a apply. There will be a quiz. That's the one that you're going to want to do for each one, and I'll make it real clear which ones you're supposed to do and which one are not. And you start the quiz, and we'll ask you questions, and you answer them. Let's take a look at the quiz question. So, which of the following contain information? A refrigerator, a book, an audio CD, my grandmother's china cabinet, a running computer. Okay, now that's a really dumb question, because ultimately everything contains information, right? But I guess what they want us to choose is those two things.
A running computer maybe?
Running computer maybe as well. Don't they all contain information? Anyways, and so you go through it and you submit it, and then you can take it again. You could look to see which ones, it'll tell you which ones you did not get right. So if we went and we compared the text against the question, we would be able to find it. So you might pop this open in two windows so that you can reference the text at the same time that you're taking a quiz. There's nothing cheaty about that at all. All right, let's go ahead and write ourselves a little program so that we can take a screenshot of it and upload it. So go to this Windows Start box, and by the way, there are other Python editors besides the one that I'm going to show y'all. There's one called PyCharm that's installed on all of these. And I ought to learn it, but I never have. The reason I stick with idle is because you get it when you install Python, and so I can be absolutely guaranteed every student who installs Python has access to it. And there's a great many others. If you
the JetBrains is actually free.
Yeah.
If you input your student ID,
Oh,
it'll
cool.
give you access to all their programming.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So I think it's well, from what I've looked at it, it looks like a powerful development environment along the lines of the things that you might use if you're doing C++ or Java development, where you create projects and you add multiple files to each project. So it looks like a good thing to do. But I'm going to run idle. So I'm going to start box, type in IDLE. And I'm going to do new file. Never start entering your code right into this place that has the arrow, because that's the shell. And doing the shell is great for executing one line at a time, but that's not what we're going to do. So what I did is I did file new. And let's write ourselves a program. What's my name? My name is Joe Roberts, CIT1213. First program, whatever. I do want you to always put a comment block up at the top. Ideally, not just your name, but a little description of what the program is supposed to do. Now, I'm not going to be hard-nosed about that at the beginning, but by the middle of the semester, I'm going to be wanting you to turn in stuff that looks like professional code, which means documented with comments. A comment is one of these things that starts with a hash symbol. It means that the computer ignores it. It's just for the human reader. But stuff for the human involved is very important because you write the code once and then it gets read a great many times in a production environment, right? Because when somebody's trying to fix your code, they're reading your code over and over, trying to figure out how it works, and if there's no comments. All right, so FN, first name, equals input, parentheses, quote. What is your first name, question mark. And by the way, I type too fast, and so if you find me getting ahead of you, slow me down. And I really mean that. Also, if I'm running it and it seems to be working on my screen and it's not running on yours, don't wait for me to say, okay, is it working for you? Get me to come over and help you. That way we don't get too far ahead. All right, how about last name is equal to input? What is your last name, question mark. And I could have just copied and pasted that stuff and made a couple of changes. And you will see me do that a lot. You'll see me highlight a line, cut, copy, paste, and stuff like that. And it looks like I'm going really fast, and some people don't know how that I'm doing it that fast. Well, if you put your cursor at the beginning of a line, and then hold the Shift key and press down, it highlights the entire line. So like if I put my cursor here, and then I hold the Shift key and I press down, it highlights that line. Then if I want to cut, Control X is a cut, and Control V is a paste. And C for copy. Don't ask me where they came up with those, but so if I highlight this line because I wanted to copy it, I could highlight it like that. I could hit Control C and then hit Control V to paste it. So let's make a message that uses those pieces of input. GR for greetings. I'm going to capital GR since I'm on a caps kit. Is equal to, quote, hello, good evening, comma, end quote, plus first name, FN, plus, quote, space, quote, plus last name, plus, quote, exclamation mark, like that. And then we're going to print our greeting. Now, do you have to make all your variable names uppercase? No, and that's really kind of considered, cheap and cheesy in both class. So I shouldn't have done it that way. The only reason I have done it that way is because when I was typing LN and lowercase in the class before this one, people were typing 1N because ones and lowercase L's are the same, or they were typing IN, which caused a syntax error. So I came up with those variable names. Really, we should give ourselves better variable names than just single letter variable names or two letter variable names. The more readable your code is, the better, and longer variable names help it. But on the other hand, the variable names are just for us. The computer doesn't care whether I call that FN or whether I call it that. That would work just as well as long as everywhere I needed it, right? Yeah, works just as well, but it's kind of dumb looking. So let me get it back to where it was. Now I'm going to try to run it. So what I'm going to do is I can either just go for run module and it'll offer to save it, or I could save it first. Me loving my keyboard commands, I hit Control S to save it. You can always just do file save. And like I said, do not save into the guts of the Python directory, subdirectories. Instead, go and make a folder somewhere, either in documents or on the desktop or something. All right, guys, riddle me this. There's one classroom computer that I teach at where I can't create a link on the favorites. And any of y'all Windows users know how that is enabled or disabled? I'd never considered that you could disable the favorites list so that people could not add their own folders to it. It blew my mind. Anyways, okay, so I created a 1203 folder and I dragged it over to favorites so that I can always get to it every time. And I'm just going to overwrite that last program. So I'm going to call it jan22.py. If you leave off the file extension, it adds py to it anyways. and I'm going to run it. You'll see this little thing that says Python shell. Well, that didn't run it. It just launched the shell again. So I'm going to close that. Then there's this next one, which is check module. It does a cursory syntax check. Not really all that useful. The one that we always want to really run for is run module. And so what is your first name? My name is Bob. What is my last name? Roberts. And it says, hello, good evening, Bob Roberts. Now, was there any reason I chose to create the greeting string before I printed it out? No, there's not. There's any number of ways you can print things out. And I'm going to comment those 2 lines out and do it a different way. Print, quote, print, parentheses, quote, hello, exclamation point, good evening, comma, %s space, %s, exclamation mark, end quote. Now this syntax is going to look totally weird. %, parentheses, fn, comma, ln, end parentheses, end parentheses. Now that just looks kind of nasty, but if you've done programming in other languages where you had %s's and %ds and stuff like that, it'll look kind of familiar. It's just that in those languages you didn't separate your string and your parameter list with this % sign. Now when I run it, it ought to do the same thing, albeit in that convoluted syntax. Here's probably what I ought to do. I'm going to comment that one out and write it one more way. Print, parentheses, quote, hello, exclamation point, good evening, comma, end quote, comma, fn, comma, ln, comma, quote, exclamation mark. And you'll see why I did not consider this way the optimal way of doing it when I run it. There'll be something slightly off about the output when I do it this way. It'll look pretty good, but not perfect. What looks weird about that?
Exclamation point.
Right, every time it sees a comma in the list of parameters that you're sending to the print function, it adds a space. And you can fix that by using plus signs rather than commas. You could do that. Well, if we were going to do that, why didn't we put a plus sign here and a plus sign here? Well, then they would all be pushed together with no spaces between them at all. So, no, I didn't really like that one either. I'm going to go back to putting in commas there and just accept the fact that there's an extra space there. But we can fix that if we wanted to.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, when you create the variable, can you add commas there, or is that just for the purpose?
When we were creating the variable here, like that, we had to use the plus signs in order to do that. No, that's not strictly true. Let me just bear with me for a moment and I'll show you something. Don't necessarily want y'all to type that in because I'm just doing some cut and paste stuff there. All right, that works. And do you see that you do have your parameter list here separated by commas here? So you can create a string by doing that.
I mean, like for the last example that you made, where you had to print out directly, good evening, comma, FN. You can't do that for when you create the variable itself.
So tell me the change that you think I maybe ought to be able to do if I'm heading in the direction of what you're working on. If I'm creating a variable like that, then what?
Well, I mean, it's just like the GR that you have in the very first one. Instead of FN plus space,
Can I put commas there? And the answer is no. I can't use commas to build a concatenated string. What's going on here is that when you see the plus sign in certain contexts, it means add numbers together. If you see commas, but there's strings around it, it's doing what's known as concatenation, which is just appending one string to the other. So it's gonna say good evening, and then whatever text was stored in FN, plus a space, plus that. But when you're doing concatenation, it all has to be plus signs.
So the comma is strictly for printing it out.
Right, the commas are used to separate components of a function call like that. And so we were able to use the commas there, but not when we were building the variable. Okay, so let me go ahead and demonstrate taking a screenshot of it so that we could upload this. And then if anybody needs help getting it to work, then I will work on it with y'all. But I want to let the people who've already got it working, just be able to upload it and go. So I've got a program. Hopefully it's working. I'm going to run it, demonstrate that. Roberts. Okay, and then I'm just going to kind of push that off to the side. The point isn't that you have to show all your code, right? You may have 20 pages worth of code. I'm not going to ask you for 20 screenshots. Just, get the output window and your code window on there. Make it look like, that you did the work. And then you see the print screen button. It's next to the F12 button on my keyboard. It might be further over to the right. It might be near the numlock button, but you see it. Hit print screen. And then open up either Paint or Word, something that you can paste into. If you like using Paint, that's totally cool. You feel like using Word, that's totally cool. I'm going to use Word or WordPad, whatever editor you like. And then you paste. You just click the paste button there, and it seems to have some offer to do as paste special and stuff like that. I get frustrated. I just hit Control V since I've memorized that as the paste shortcut. And if you want to go to a lot of trouble and open it up in a Paint editor and crop out stuff and things like that, if you want to spend your time doing that, that's fine. I have no expectations. If you do a screenshot and you have a multi-monitor setup, it looks really funny. I don't care. I don't care if you send me a screenshot that has 20 monitors, shown on it or whatever, but it doesn't take long to paste it into a Paint document and crop it if that is your goal. I could have typed Paint, launched Paint, and pasted there, right? And then I could crop it if I so chose. So what you'd want to do is, once you've got it into your document, File, Save As. Why not put it in the same directory that you've been putting your other stuff in? So I'm going to go and find my CIT1113 directory and give it the same date, Jan 22. And now I have a screenshot. And I'll never ask you to do that again during class period. But when you're doing the homework, go ahead and take a screenshot of it running and upload the screenshot along with the source code that you wrote. And if you feel like zipping it all together, that's fine. If you don't want to, that's fine. Let's make a Dropbox for it. Your homework is going to be to download and install Python, if you don't already have it. If you already have it, it's that much easier, right? And to get into MindTap, either via the free trial, right, or by actually purchasing it. So do those two things. Take screenshots of idle running and take a screenshot of yourself inside MindTap, and those will be the two things that you upload into the Dropbox. So I'll create a folder that has those instructions in it. So the days I enumerate by their letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, one a week. And then the homework assignments, I enumerate by number. So if you see something that begins with a letter, it means it was a daily assignment. And just because it has an end date marked today, that doesn't mean that if you missed class today, it would be a late assignment, right? Because I've already said if you miss class, just watch the video as soon as possible and upload something into the folder. All right, if you go to assignments, you'll see the folder and you can submit your documents to it. I expect the vast majority of y'all know how to do that. If I need to walk you through it, it's okay. What if you took me up on the offer to not type in anything, right? In that case, just create a Word document or a note file or something that says, I watched the lecture and it was amazing, man. All right, I'm kidding, but whatever. Just say, just say that you watched it, upload it, and you're good to go. Now, if you're doing it at home, I want you to go to the trouble of filling out the form. if you're not going to actually follow along. The form is over here in contents. Class information, lecture video form. So if you're not going to work along with it, if typing along with the lecture is too annoying, which I can understand, then you would open it up and it's just got a place where you fill in your name, the date that it was watched. If there were any daily notes for the video, they will be in a notes folder with the same name, say lecture A or whatever. And what did you learn from the video? Please write some sentences about it. Just convince me that you actually watched it so that I know that you just didn't decide to upload 20 forms, saying that you watched all the videos, but I haven't watched them. All righty. Are there any questions?
I actually have a few questions about Cengage.
Yeah.
This is my first semester to ever experience it. And I have one class already, accounting, within Cengage.
Yeah.
I paid $60 because I'm freaking cheap, okay? And I actually got my book off of check. So my question is, do I have to get your book through Cengage? And yes or no? Why, basically.
Do you have to get your book through Cengage? You don't have to buy a book at all, but you have to buy the access code that'll take you to the online Cengage website.
Okay, where do I get that access code again?
When you ran it, it offers a way to purchase it, or you can go and buy it from the bookstore. And unfortunately, it's going to be another $60 or something like that.
You should also be able to upgrade,
But you should be able to upgrade
Yeah.
your current.
Oh,
and they will
Subscription.
refund your money.
okay.
They refunded mine last semester, whatever.
How long did it take them though?
About a week.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Anybody get any syntax errors that they were still stuck on? Because I know that I copied and pasted code and changed it.
So you're saying if we,
Okay, cool.
I had Cengage last semester, right? I didn't do the unlimited, if I do unlimited and download, were you supposed to the last semester?
No, it has to be current.
Okay.
It has to be current. Because when I